Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? Good afternoon. In lieu of a devotional this afternoon, will you please join me in a moment of silence? We have 5 bills for introduction this afternoon. House Bill 160 is an act relating to minimum reimbursement rates for labor-related automobile insurance claims, introduced by Representative Christie of Hartford and others. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 160, an act relating to minimum reimbursement rates for labor-related automobile insurance claims.
Now the bill has been read a first time and is referred to the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. House Bill 161 is an act relating to issuance of burning permits, introduced by the Committee on Agriculture, Food Resiliency, and Forestry. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 161, an act relating to issuance of burning permits.
Now the bill has been read a first time, and as a committee bill, it is placed on the calendar for notice on the next legislative day pursuant to House Rule 48. House Bill 162 is an act relating to operation of motor vehicles with studded snow tires, introduced by Representative Burke of Brattleboro. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 162, an act relating to operation of motor vehicles with studded snow tires.
Now the bill has been read a first time and is referred to the Committee on Transportation. House Bill 163 is an act relating to eco-sanitation systems, introduced by Representative Burke of Brattleboro and others. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 163, an act relating to eco-sanitation systems.
Now the bill has been read a first time and is referred to the Committee on Environment and Energy. House Bill 164 is an act relating to the permitting of low-impact wastewater systems, introduced by Representative Burke of Brattleboro. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 164, an act relating to the permitting of low-impact wastewater systems.
Now the bill has been read a first time and is referred to the Committee on Environment and Energy. Are there any announcements? Member from Essex. Nope, Westford, my apologies.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to ask you to welcome back to this chamber my constituent, mentor, and friend, Martha Heath, who's in the gallery today. And I say welcome back because, as some of you I know remember, Martha served in this chamber from 1992 to 2014, with 16 years on appropriations and a decade of those as chair. Martha also spent many years serving on our local school board, including guiding us through a district merger. It was always comforting in that time when it felt uncertain to know that Martha was representing our community. But just as important to me as her service is how Martha has never, ever been too busy to share her experiences both within our community and beyond. Upon telling some of my friends and fellow members that Martha had reached out to me immediately after my election to share her wisdom with me, they replied with, "Yeah, me too." It wouldn't even occur to her to enjoy her retirement without and sit that one out. Martha's example of hard work and serious endeavor should be an example to us all, and as is her warm and giving nature. Please join me in warmly welcoming her back to this chamber.
Will the former member, let me try that again. Will the former member please rise and be recognized? Member for Middlebury.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today's World Wetlands Day. It's celebrated every Groundhog Day to raise global awareness about the vital role of wetlands for people and the planet, including water quality, food security, and biological diversity and carbon sequestration. This year, the theme is restoration. The State of Vermont Wetlands Program is here today in the card room, represented by Zapata Courage and Laura Lapierre, two of the program's district ecologists who can answer any questions you might have. They're sharing some examples of a few ways in which restoration of wetlands is happening, often with financial compensation to landowners, in partnership with the state and other organizations. So go touch a frog, feel a beaver pelt, and learn about some of the amazing functions and values that wetlands provide in Vermont by seeing what the Wetlands Program brought to the State House today, and take a moment to enter the raffle for the frog napkins. So I please ask you to welcome Zapata and Laura.
The guest member for Middlebury, please rise and be recognized. Are there any further announcements? Seeing none. Orders of the day. Members will begin with House Bill 45, which is an act relating to abusive litigation filed against survivors of domestic abuse, stalking, or sexual assault. Prior to third reading, the member from Burlington, Representative Rachelson, offers an amendment to the bill that is printed in today's House calendar. Member from Burlington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So in checking with Ledge Counsel and our Chief Superior Judge yesterday, after being interrogated from my colleague from Northfield, it became clear that the solution was changing the word, which appeared as a typo where it said judge, because judicial officer includes, it's regularly used, and it includes magistrates, probate judges, and superior judges. It isn't creating new authority or jurisdiction. It follows what officers currently are authorized to do, and it is in no way expanding the scope of duty. The phrase judicial officer is one that appears in a number of civil, family, and criminal statutes. It is also the term used in setting forth the statutory procedure for relief from abuse orders, which is the chapter we are working in, which is 15 VSA 1106. And I'm getting used to not ruffling papers here with the microphone. So you'll see the amendment is on page 35. And basically we are striking out the word judge and inserting the word judicial officer so it will be consistent. Our committee met and on a vote of 901, voted favorably for this amendment, and we urge this body to join us.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Burlington, member from Northfield?
Madam Speaker, I thank the member for all of the good follow-up work and appreciate the attention to the questions I raised.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Burlington? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have amended the bill. Please listen to the third reading of the bill.
H45, an act relating to abusive litigation filed against survivors of domestic abuse, stalking, or sexual assault.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed the bill. Next up is House Bill 145, which is an act relating to fiscal year 2023 budget adjustments. The bill was introduced by the Committee on Appropriations. The member from Virgins, Representative Lanford, will speak for the committee. Please listen to the second reading of the bill.
H 145, an act relating to fiscal year 2023 budget adjustments.
Member from Virgins.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can everybody hear me okay? I will be presenting the FY23 Budget Adjustment Act, which is H 145. You can find the bill on your legislative website under Bills and Resolutions, and the full House received links yesterday in your email. Supporting documents can also be found on the Joint Fiscal Office website under Appropriations. Madam Speaker, I'll back up. I'm going to practice. The state budget represents the values and priorities of Vermonters. It reflects the state's policies and goals, as well as its aspirations for the future. The state budget touches on the lives of every Vermonter. Every member and every standing committee has a critical role in the development of the budget and in its adjustment. The Budget Adjustment Act is a mid-year truing up of the budget passed in May. Often, the 6-month adjustment would include mostly agency changes and technical corrections. This year, the BAA has many of those adjustments, but this BAA is like no other. Given the unprecedented federal relief and the availability of a large amount of one-time funds, the BAA includes additional expenditures. This level of one-time funding will not last, but it is extremely important to invest in ways that make the most going forward. This BAA makes strategic one-time investments in infrastructure, housing, and other areas of need in the state. Some additional expenditures are needed to address the continued impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The net general fund increase from the FY23 budget in this BAA is $91 million. Sources of one-time funds include leveraging the federal Medicaid dollars, revenue forecast upgrades, reversions, transfers, vacancy savings, and carry forward funds. All reserves are maintained at the statutory required amounts. I would like to highlight some of the base budget adjustments. $86.1 million of saved general fund money is from the federal Medicaid dollars increased during the public health emergency, better known as the FMAP bump. It provides to address the Brattleboro retreat budget pressures, to increase the facility's bed count and per diem rate with $22.4 million total funds. Funds rate increase for the skilled home health services, funds traveling service contract increases at the Vermont Psychiatric Care Hospital, addresses DCF reach-up caseload increases with $8.6 million of general fund. Funds Dale Developmental Services caseload pressures with $1.4 million of global commitment. Provides the Department of Corrections with recruitment and retention incentives for the staff with $6.8 million general funds. Supports the Vermont Veterans Home with funding for their need for additional staff and costs also around traveling nurses. Assures funding continues to support the e-bike incentive program. These are base budget adjustments, and more are found within the agency budgets within the web report. That's in the B sections, or base, B for base. Let me highlight some of the larger changes in the language sections of the bill. Section 45 makes amendments to the B1100 section of the FY23 budget. Those changes start on page 25 of the bill and continue on to 32. This is the section that contains the one-time general fund appropriations. I would like to follow the highlight with you by way of a category instead of just following in the bill. Under housing, these are all found in section 45 that starts on page 25 of the bill. Housing, under housing, there's supports, adds $50 million of general fund to the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board, that's the VHCB, to create perpetually affordable homes for Vermonters and to address the state's housing supply challenge. Also in section 45, there is supports for the General Assistance Temporary Housing Assistance Program with $13 million to house targeted populations through the end of the fiscal year. In the B section, we also appropriate $7.5 million of general funds to house others beyond the targeted population until the end of the fiscal year. In there, we put a request that DCF submit a sustainable housing plan for all of these populations to report back. Also in this section, you're going to see $3 million for DCF and the CARES Housing Voucher Program. Actually, on section 45, you're going to see an additional $5 million to the Agency of Community Housing and Community Development to continue the Vermont Incentive Program, better known as VHIP. It's been a very successful pilot last year that we funded at about 1.5, and it has done some amazing work in the state by getting apartments online quickly. And in this budget adjustment, there's an additional $5 million. Underneath Human Services, in this budget section, one-time money, it provides $1.2 million of support to the Lund Center's residential treatment program. We also support with $2.1 million to the adult day providers for operating funds through June of 2023. We set aside in here $9.25 million of general funds to increase the number of psychiatric youth inpatient beds in the state to be used after a feasibility study is completed and submitted to the General Assembly. We're holding that money aside until a location and things work out. It sets aside $952,000 of general fund for a community-based residential program for adolescent males after a feasibility study is undertaken with relevant stakeholders and a report submitted to the General Assembly. This is where it came late to us. 3 buildings in Rutland area that a provider has been in there for 20 years, and it looks like it may possibly be sold, and there's an opportunity here to continue. We're holding that money aside until a group can come back to the full body to let us know if that is a good decision or not. You'll hear often here, we're looking for a plan to go to the next step. We also add $30,000 of general fund to the Vermont Department of Health for a grant to the American Heart Association for first aid training kits for our schools across the state. We also in here add $350,000 of general fund to the State Refugee Resettlement Office for employment assistance grants for new Americans. That was a housing and human services, and where there's also in here is also other needs. Within section 45 on one-time dollars, there's also securing $3 million for the Rural Infrastructure Assistance Program. There will be an amendment coming soon that we are holding this for a plan, and a plan was presented to us, so you will see in a coming amendment from Commerce and Government Ops some changes there. We also set aside $9.2 million of general fund for the Agency of Agriculture to address the needs of our organic farmers. And we put aside about 1.115 general funds to the judiciary to address network cabling, courthouses, sound systems, and correction facilities, remote hearing improvements. And the list goes on. Match requirements in Section 45. Also, we add $30 million to the Public Service Department for state match for a National Telecommunications and Information Administration's broadband grant. We also provides $3.34 million for 10% match required for FEMA COVID funds. You'll also find here provides $1.73 million of general fund to the Agency of Digital Services to match up for a grant for LiDAR. It also adds $1.12 million to the military department for the state's match for funds to address the needs of state armories. Also adds $350,000 to provide match to the Northeast Kingdom Build to Scale proposal. That is the list that you're going to find just in Section 45. The balance of the language can be found starting on page 32 and goes on to 64. I will highlight, I will not read every section. Section 46 on page 32 amends B 1101 to appropriate $3 million to the Department of Environmental Conservation for PFAS remediation. Section 47 on page 33 amends the section of the bill last year, that was 1102, to make the needed changes to the Technology Modernization Special Fund. These changes are truly technical in nature and shifts the project dollars out of ADS's base agency operation budget and assures that a special fund has the funding, which we did last year in this, to be available for those projects. Section 53 on page 41 is the governor's recommended grant program to support the development of coordinated community-based systems, supports employment-related services for refugees. Sections 55 and 56 on page 43 is the governor recommended increase to reimbursement rates set according to the Department of Vermont Health Access. Section 57, page 45, provides the Agency of Education the flexibility to ensure that ESSER funds can be expended by the end of the funding period. Section 59 on page 46 is the governor's recommended change to the Brownsfield program. Your House Appropriations updated the administrative percent allowed. Section 66 on page 49 is workforce recruitment. This language changed to maximize the opportunity of the nursing programs. This is supported by Commerce, supported this language. Our House Commerce Committee supported this language. Section 67, page 52, is the Nurse Precept Incentive Grants. This language came to us from the Committee of Commerce, and we added. Section 74, page 56, is the Downtown and Village Tax Credit Program. This is language that was recommended from the Ways and Means Committee, and we added it. Section 75, 76, and 77 is all language that is needed to make one change in moving the funding to the e-bike incentive program from the Replace Your Ride program. Not taking all of it, but $100,000 of it. Section 80 on page 59 is the student loan repayment assistance. This recommended language came from the Human Services Committee. It makes adjustments to the program in order to allow increased access to the loan assistance program. Section 81, found on page 61, is language requested from Ways and Means to shift an audit report out 1 year. Section 85, page 61, is language required to correctly place vaping cannabis products in the proper tax category. Recommended language from the Ways and Means and the Government Ops Committee, and we add it. Section 84, page 62, is language added seeking a review and a report back to the Judiciary Network Replacement Project. Several standing committees worked with the judicial branch and the 2 members of the Appropriations Committee to come up with this path. Section 86, it's on page 63, places $4.6 million in reserve until DCF, Department of Children and Families, submits a report on the proposed in reserve until DCF submits a report on the proposed secure residential stabilization facilities for youth. Section 87 on page 64. It's the last section. Requests DCF convene a work group to examine the public policy options for administering temporary housing assistance. This group shall consider investments needed to build local capacity to support emergency housing needs, which may include funding, training, technical assistance, and planning support. Section 89 is the effective dates, which this bill is on passage with the exception of Section 72 and Section 82, which are retroactive. I want to thank you. This concludes my highlights of H-145. Witnesses we heard from include the administration, the agencies, standing committees, and the public. A detailed list is on my desk. I would like to take this moment to thank the members of the House Appropriations Committee for their hard work under ever-ending changing space transitions. I would like to thank the standing committees, truly the standing committees, for their outstanding responses and their time of taking testimony and providing excellent feedback. I would like to thank the staff of JFO and our Ledge Council for their incredible support and willingness to help this new House Appropriations Committee get to this point. Our committee vote on H-145 was 8-4-0, and we seek your support with a vote of yes. Thank you.
Now the member from St. Albans City, Representative McCarthy, and others offer an amendment to the bill that is printed in today's House calendar. Member from St. Albans City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The amendment to H-145 is presented by my fellow chairs of the House Agriculture, Food Resilience and Forestry Committee and House Commerce and Economic Development. It's the result of work by those committees and the House Government Operations and Military Affairs Committee, as well as a group that worked to address the kind of concerns and ideas last weekend to flesh out a plan for the Municipal Technical Assistance Grants proposal. There are 3 instances of amendment that you'll find on page 35 of today's calendar. And the first is really a technical amendment to clarify language at the end of the section that deals with the proposed investment to support organic dairy. And it just clarifies that the plan to on how those funds will be addressed doesn't need legislative approval, that we will enact that plan once we receive it. So that's just a technical clarification. The second instance replaces the placeholder, but it's the same amount of money as was reported in the BAA bill as passed or as introduced, the $3 million to the Secretary of Administration to provide funding for the municipal technical assistance grants. The third instance is really the bulk of the work that was done to talk about how that money would be spent. So this sets up that the agency of administration can use that money to help support communities that lack technical capacity as roughly defined by an index that they have developed, and that will be used to prioritize both the outreach and the initial eligibility. But it was also important to the committees and the folks who worked on this amendment that there be flexibility for them to also be able to grant those funds in the event that they found that there was need, but folks in that specific communities didn't have a particular score. So I think there was a good compromise reached on that particular point. The other point was that I think is important, which is really in the providers section that you'll see at the top of page 37, was really about the idea that the grants would be awarded to help provide this technical assistance with a focus on existing public entities like regional planners and the RDCs, but that they could also be used for other consultants as appropriate, and that the AOA would create a list of qualified contractors that could actually do that work. The last piece I'll comment on is the report back. So the first report back is pretty soon, April 1st. The idea behind getting this money out quickly in budget adjustment is to support these small communities that lack the technical capacity so that they can get access to federal grant programs primarily, and that are time sensitive. So we want to hear about the outreach efforts and make sure that that happens in a timely way, and then see how effective this is. So the reporting requirements starting on April 1st. The amendment was looked at by the House Government Operations and Military Affairs Committee, which approved it unanimously on a straw vote. And we hope that you will support the amendment as well. Thank you.
Member from Virgins. Member from Middlebury.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Appropriations Committee would like to thank the members from St. Albans, Coventry, and Shaftesbury for coordinating this amendment and for their collaboration with all the relevant departments and people who needed to be at the table. Appropriations very much appreciates all the work that went into developing the plan and the language. On a vote of 12-0-0, the committee found this amendment favorable. We hope you will support the committee by voting yes on this amendment. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from St. Albans City and others? Member from Poultney.
Madam Speaker, may I inquire of the presenter of the bill?
The member from St.
Amendment,
Albans City.
I'm sorry.
The member from St. Albans City is interrogated.
Just a clarification, Madam Speaker. When it states the plan will be submitted no later than March 23rd and reviewed by the committees of jurisdiction and enacted in law by the General Assembly, that language will come back to the floor, and we will have an opportunity to vote on that bill.
Madam Speaker, I believe the member is referring to the first instance of amendment.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
And yes, my understanding is that that is correct, okay. That the plan...
Which in turn would then go to the Senate.
I believe that that is what enacted means, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from St. Albans City and others? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have amended the bill. Now the member from Rutland City, Representative Clifford, and offers an amendment to the bill that is also printed in today's House calendar. Member from Rutland City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This amendment removes the $7.5 million, which would have been used for the General Assistance Temporary Housing Program. However, it leaves the $13.4 million for housing our most vulnerable population. The explanation for my amendment is as follows. The state hotel voucher program has cost Rutland City and adjoining communities tens of thousands of dollars. Police, fire, and EMS services have been strained. Numerous cases of vandalism, shoplifting, drug overdoses, and even loss of life have been linked to this program in Rutland. Also, the economic impact on tourism and the loss of rooms and meals taxes have suffered greatly. The legislature and administration must act immediately to find a solution to the problems, or the problems will continue. Should this amendment fail, I will look forward to seeing the study as prescribed later in this bill, which is due out on April 15th, 2023. The mayor of the city of Rutland, along with the Rutland Town Select Board Chairman, are also in agreement with this amendment.
Member from Virgins.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Appropriations Committee would like to thank the member from Rutland for bringing us this amendment. While we appreciate and empathize with the predicament that he describes, the committee nevertheless felt that it was important to include all people who are experiencing homelessness in this part of the budget adjustment. On a vote of 8-4-0, the committee found this amendment unfavorable. We hope you will support the committee by voting no.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Rutland City? Member from Clarendon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Rutland Town is one of my district towns. I share that with the member from West Rutland. In Rutland Town, just so people can get some feel for things, there's a place that a lot of people shop called the Green Mountain Shopping Plaza. I'd say there's 10 to 12 businesses there, including places like Dick's, Bed Bath & Beyond, Hannaford, Staples, and so forth. Adjacent to that shopping plaza is the Cortina Inn and the Hampton Inn. They're right adjacent to it. I can tell you from personal experience, there are people who will not shop there due to the crime that happens there. Madam Speaker, may I read a note I got from the chairman of the Rutland Town Board, Select Board?
You may.
89% of our entire police budget is being expended on enforcement due to the law breaking in the vicinity of the Cortina Inn. Up to 154 rooms, full occupancy, have been extended by the state to the voucher program, and many occupants are not residents of our area or even Vermont. There have been 4 drug-related deaths there with this program. We are losing thousands in option tax revenue and are in danger imminently of losing 2 major retailers in our plaza due to unsustainable revenue loss due to theft. Calls for police service in this area are in the multiple hundreds. We are in a situation where our force cannot serve the rest of our taxpayer public as we promised them. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Rutland City? Member from Pittsford.
Madam Speaker, many of our communities are suffering, and I say suffering, from the effects of the hoteling program that was necessary during the early portion of the pandemic. It sounded like a great idea at that time. The time has come to end this program. We in the greater Rutland area and Rutland County are under stress. And Madam Speaker, I would like to be able to give you some statistics from a report written by the Chief of Police of Rutland City, year ending 22. May I have your permission to do that?
You may.
Madam Speaker, Rutland City is a little different than Rutland Town. And so I'm just going to give you the statistics for the city. Currently, within the city boundaries, we're at end of 22. Our hotels, 6 hotels are housing 511 people on the program. During that time, 4% of all calls, of all police calls in Rutland City originated from these 6 hotels. There were 43 overdoses in those hotels since 2020, 9 of which have been fatal. 10 of the overdoses occurred in 2022. Just to show you the magnitude of the stress on our communities. I'd like to go just a little bit further and talk about some statistics on crime that have occurred within the city, and you can extrapolate this to our whole area. Larceny on automobiles are up 50% over a 5-year average. Larceny from buildings are up close to 100% in this time period from the start of COVID in 2020. Retail theft is up close to 200 crimes since the start of COVID. The member from Clarendon talked about a shopping facility within reach of one of the larger providers in Rutland Town. But I have experience in meeting people that will not shop in Rutland City, especially after dark, because of fear of harm. We only have 3 lodging establishments in the greater Rutland area that have not taken in the transient population that we're housing for COVID. 3 in Rutland County, in the greater Rutland City area. Just 3 hotels. We're the ski capital of the East in Rutland County. And we have 3 hotels available for people to stay in that they would want to stay in. And the rest of the people are leaving the area where they come to ski. We can't take this any longer. We need to move forward and end this program so our lives and the lives of my constituents and my friends in the Rutland County area can return to normalcy. We've had murders in these establishments. We've had just way too much crime as a result. And I gave you the statistics. Crime is going up. The police department alone, since 2022 to today, their call volume's up 1,500. 1,500. And they're short police officers. They're working forced overtime, and they're answering these calls. Now, this is just within the city. So, Madam Speaker and the body, I urge you to support this amendment. This is important to us all. And if you think about it in your own community, you may be able to make similar comparisons. So please support the amendment and vote yes for it. Thank you.
Question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Rutland City, member from Northfield?
Madam Speaker, one of the towns that I represent, Berlin, is also host to a large hotel, but it's a very small town. Population only around 3,000 people for its tax base and police department. I sat in just a few weeks ago on a meeting with some of the town leadership, the police chief, the hotel management and owner, and representatives from the state. And there was one thing that struck me more than anything else in the conversation, and that was when one of the town leadership members spoke up and said, "We want to be helping these people. We believe this is a good thing to be doing, but we can't do it on our own. We're too small. The costs of our police department are too high." They were not rejecting helping people. but they have not been getting the help that they need to support the individuals in those motels. Many people living in close quarters without being able to cook, to have a kitchen. And I think that that's been a problem with the program from the start, that there haven't been adequate supports. It remains a problem. This was intended to be a very temporary solution. And when I see the study that's been requested, I think, well, that's great, except I can recall at least 2 previous times that we've put stakeholders together to say, what's next? What are we going to do when the federal funding ends? Well, now it has ended. So now we're picking up the tab. I think it's important, Madam Speaker, to understand when you look at the proposal is that it is not cutting off the funding for those families with children, for older Vermonters, for those with disabilities. And in fact, that funding and that group of individuals are what your Committee on Human Services recommended to the Appropriations Committee for support of homeless individuals for these additional months while more planning is being done. So, Madam Speaker, I would urge the body to support this amendment.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Rutland City, member from Bridport?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. When I'm not here at the State House, I work for an organization serving community members in my county who are experiencing homelessness. I can tell you that we all agree this program is not a permanent solution. However, we cannot exit these neighbors to unsafe conditions. I hear my colleagues' concerns, and I would like to note the additional $2 million afforded in this bill for wraparound services and supports at the hotels. We need to allow for more time until we begin to see increased capacity from the many new investments in shelter and housing that were made these past few years. We need more time to design and implement a path forward that will not destabilize one of the most vulnerable populations in this state. We have hundreds of households in hotels, and there is literally nowhere for them to go. For almost 3 years now, we have been able to ensure that almost everyone in our communities has adequate shelter and food. For many, this is the first time in their lives that they didn't need to worry about meeting their most basic needs. They have been able to do things like apply for health insurance and begin to focus on their physical and mental well-being. They are accessing treatment, getting connected to services, and utilizing all the great employment resources Vermont has to offer. With support from organizations all over the state, folks are addressing their barriers so that when our investments come to fruition and that housing is ready, they can transition smoothly into permanent and sustainable situations. When each member of our community can meet their needs with dignity and know happiness, we are all safer and stronger. We all thrive.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Rutland City, member from Burlington?
Madam Speaker, may I interrogate the presenter of the amendment?
The member from Rutland City is interrogated.
Madam Speaker, did any committee that you're aware of take testimony on the potential cost of cutting this funding on which provides housing, which is a social determinant of health? Has any committee considered the cost of cutting this funding at this time during this crisis?
Madam Speaker, not that I am aware.
Madam Speaker, has there been any testimony on the potential impact of cutting this housing, because housing is a social determinant of crime? Has any testimony been taken on the potential impact that it might have on increasing crime if we suddenly kick people to the streets from hotels?
Madam Speaker, may I ask for a 2-minute recess to to answer that question.
The House will stand in recess for several minutes. Will the House please come to order? Just a reminder for members, we are in the middle of an interrogation. Member from Rutland City.
Sure. These questions should be directed to the Human Services Committee or the Appropriations Committee.
Madam Speaker, did the Appropriations Committee hear any testimony about the potential impact on crime rates of cutting money in the budget adjustment bill that provides housing, which is a social determinant of crime?
Member from Pulteney, what is your point of order?
Paul, sit down. So is the member asking to interrogate the chair of the Appropriations Committee or the chair of the Human Services Committee?
I see.
Member from Pulteney, I'll remind the member to be addressing questions to the either direct question to the amendment sponsor, or to the chair of the committee. It's unclear who you're asking the question to.
Madam Speaker, have you reviewed any evidence that shows that, Madam Speaker, have you reviewed any evidence that shows that cutting the social determinant of crime that housing is, have you reviewed any evidence that it's actually going to help crime rates in your area versus make them worse?
Madam Speaker.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Member from Pittsburgh.
Madam Speaker, I believe the member from Burlington should be asking that question of the chair of the Appropriations Committee and not the presenter of the amendment. He would have no knowledge of those and no knowledge to answer this question. And I think you may have just addressed him. He may have misunderstood what you said, that he should be asking the chair of the Appropriations Committee and not the presenter of the amendment.
Member from Pittsford, after conferring with the clerk, it is appropriate for the member to interrogate, to ask the proposer of the amendment a specific question for background. But if there is a specific question about what the Appropriations Committee heard or took testimony on, then it would be appropriate for the member from Burlington to ask the chair of the committee. Member from Burlington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm going to end the interrogation and just make a statement for the sake of time. In all research I have ever reviewed, it shows that lack of housing hurts health and it makes crime worse. And it would be incredibly irresponsible for the state of Vermont at this moment in history to throw vulnerable people out to the streets after providing housing for so long and before fulfilling the promise that we've made to the people to build the housing for them. And right now, it takes 252 days to access housing. And what we heard from the state economist in our joint fiscal briefing was that during a time when there's a boom, the federal government has engaged in a massive amount of deficit spending, and that it's important that when you make an investment, you see it through. That if we cut programs too quickly, we lose the benefits of that investment. So at this moment in time, it would be irresponsible, not only socially, but also fiscally, for us to cut this funding and to send people out to the streets. And my concern is that there would be greater harm to the communities that people are seeking to protect. That when people are no longer in that housing, where will they be? Where are they going to go? And will the crime get any worse? So thank you. I'll be voting no on this amendment. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Rutland City? Member from Castleton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Madam Speaker, I'm listening to all sides of this subject right now. I'm going to try and adjust this and hopefully it won't freak out. Still good? All right, perfect. As a member of Rutland County, I understand where Representative Clifford is coming from, and I understand where the representative from Burlington is coming from. We're in an impasse right now with our state where we have a temporary solution with temporary money to try and help vulnerable people in need. And as mentioned by other representatives on this floor, crime has increased as a result of this program. Myself personally, missing an armed robbery at a local gas station by about 3 minutes one day up the road from this hotel, so that was fun. But the amount of opioid overdoses that have occurred, speaking with local sources in law enforcement, 4 opioid overdose reversals done for the same location in one night. But this is not to say that in terms of the housing program, it's to say that we are failing these people that are most vulnerable and need help. And especially since these programs have existed for a good amount of time now, and the fact that crime is existing at this level shows that even though these people have housing, we are not giving them the resources that they need in order to move past this point in time, a smooth transition, as one of the prior representatives mentioned. So I would implore that both sides come together in regards to this issue and discuss a potential solution that is not only fiscally responsible, but also addresses the needs of these individuals. Because at some point in the middle is where we have to meet and try and figure out how can we help these people while at the same time not putting pressures on our businesses. So I'm not saying for or against this bill. I just want to try and bring people together on this one. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Rutland City, member from Brattleboro?
Madam Speaker, I am not standing up today to express my sadness with the confusion between correlation and causation. I am not standing up here today to express my sorrow on how we all have a tendency in this country and in this culture to equate homelessness or desperation with crime. I would like to share that in Windham County over the last 2 years, and we believe possibly in part due to the robustness of our emergency housing program, we have actually brought our overdose death rate down in Windham County for the first time in a very long time. And so because of that, I'm grateful to the expanded services money that was added in budget adjustment for these programs. But what I'm actually standing up to say is to report on some of the conversations that the Joint Fiscal Committee had this fall. As many folks might be aware, last year, this body, through budget, believed that we were setting aside enough money in the budget to cover a robust emergency housing program through this legislative season, so that this year we, as a new body, would have the time and the attention and the policy expertise to develop a robust plan moving forward. For various reasons, the money was spent down more quickly than expected, and for perhaps even different reasons, we were not aware of that until quite the last moment. And so what was brought to the Joint Fiscal Committee this fall was a situation that felt untenable and a recommendation for a very, very rapid phase out of the program that really would have, well, I want to say pulled out the rug from underneath people, but it was really pulled the bed out from underneath people who are feeling safe for perhaps the first time in a very long time. And so the Joint Fiscal Committee did a lot of work and a lot of really incredible negotiations with the administration to ensure that we could continue funding that was found in various pots of money. I'd like to thank the Joint Fiscal Office for some fast work and the administration for this really show of good faith in finding enough revenue to extend that program into this season with really the true expectation of the Joint Fiscal Committee and the people at that negotiating table that we would be finding money in budget adjustment in order to extend the program long enough so our policy committees could do the good work to ensure that we were not pulling the bed out from under people, but instead we're building real lifelines and real safety nets to hold people into this next phase of what we all know is a massive housing crisis. Thank you.
Question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Rutland City? Are you ready for the question? Member from Bennington.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to ask the issuer of the amendment question, if I may.
The member from Rutland City is interrogated.
Madam Speaker, I'm curious if the member from Rutland can tell this body what Rutland City has done to try to either mitigate or ameliorate the problems that they are experiencing.
Madam Speaker, I don't believe that there has been any certain plan put forth. However, I feel that that is due to the fact that this is a state program that has put this forward. And so I believe it is the obligation of the state. However, as I testified in the Appropriations Committee this morning, I'd be more than happy to be part of that conversation to develop that plan.
Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Rutland City? Member from Waterbury.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to rise to acknowledge the fact that we know that this program is not without its flaws. However, I also want to acknowledge and to remind the body that this body last year determined through our appropriation process that we wanted to continue to support this group of individuals in this program through the end of this fiscal year, June 30th. And by doing that, as the previous member said, it will enable the program committees and the policy committees to do the work to try to have a smoother transition to the next phase. So I just want to remind the body that this body actually chose to extend this program through its action last year.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as offered by the member from Rutland City? Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Nay. The nays appear to have it. The nays do have it, and you have declined to amend the bill. Now the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for that question? Member from Vergennes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Your House Committee on Appropriations, along with everyone else in all the standing committees, worked very, very hard on this very important bill, this mid-year correction. And because of the importance of this bill, Madam Speaker, I request that when the vote is taken, it be taken by roll.
The member from Vergennes requests that when the vote is taken, it be taken by roll. Is the member sustained? The member is sustained. When the vote is taken, it will be taken by roll. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Member from Lowell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I inquire of the presenter of the bill, please?
The member from Vergennes is interrogated.
I'm particularly interested in, it's on page 32, number 37, the $50 million to the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. A couple of questions there that I have are, number one, did the committee take any testimony from the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board on how much federal money they're getting? Recently, as you know, there was a big budget bill in the federal legislation, and Senator Leahy, Senator Sanders, and Senator Welsh, Representative Welsh, had a package for Vermont. Did they take any testimony? Did you take any testimony on how much that is for the Housing and Conservation Board?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We did not take specific testimony on from federal legislation that is under consideration, no. But I can say that what we did take testimony from is this body's work in the past, Vermonters' priorities around housing. When we came to this body, we have had several budgeting years now where we have truly beefed up with whatever federal dollars we've had and state dollars to increase through this particular mechanism, which has been a proven way to create and continue to create perpetually affordable housing in the state of Vermont. This is something that we know we need. We have gotten incredible support from the committees of jurisdiction, in particular from House General. And we've in the past put hundreds of millions of dollars in this. At the moment, I think the need out there that we have heard is right around 185 million. 50 million is a very big number. And it is not, it should not be taken lightly at all, Madam Speaker. This is also in conjunction with the projects that are going, the expediency why it is in budget adjustment, something that you would say to yourself, why does it need to happen here? Because the pipeline of projects right now would have to stop and wait until the next, the 24 budget would be approved. If and when we have additional money in there, which I hope that we will continue to have that conversation as we go forward, to continue to support housing. This is something that Vermonters truly, truly have a need for, and that we have been responding for. So this particular mechanism is an extremely important way to fund, and we've known that through years of experience.
Madam Speaker, I don't dispute at all the need for housing in Vermont. As a contractor myself, I certainly can see it in my area. Another question I have is when it reads in here that the VHCB shall also use the funds for shelters and permanent homes for those experiencing homelessness in consultation with the Secretary of Human Services. Did the committee talk at all about only a percentage of this $50 million that could be used for that, or is it open-ended?
I believe that the program itself is funded and then it can be used in a variety of ways, all of which I do believe that this body has supported in the past, and we need shelters as well as permanent housing. But the program going forward will be further debated in FY24 budget, as I would anticipate and welcome the governor's recommend for a very good additional amount of money for this program.
Thank you, Member. Madam Speaker, as I said, I certainly know and appreciate the tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars that's going to be put into this housing initiative. I would just say that through the Budget Adjustment Act, it isn't necessary. And I'll tell you why. I went to a meeting the other night with the Vermont Association of Realtors talking about this very issue of housing. And I think one of the things that has to happen before tons of money gets out there is we have to have some revision in our Act 250 and local zoning. They spelled it out in their report as to what needs to happen. I've also talked with other contractors out there. One in particular had 32 employees having a hard time finding workers to hire on, even if he could get the extra work. He's booked out 2 years. So again, to have this amount in the Budget Adjustment Act, I don't believe is necessary. There's time for a more comprehensive look at where this money goes. I have looked at the federal delegations money that came in, and it's in the tens of millions of dollars. It's hard to pick out each piece. But again, there's quite a bit of money coming from the federal delegations as well, which I think should be considered as well. And by postponing this out of the Budget Adjustment Act in the regular budget for 2024 year, these sorts of things can be considered and fleshed out. This money has to come from somewhere in the next budget. So again, I certainly hope that we can postpone this $50 million for now and have a more comprehensive look at it. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Member from St. Johnsbury.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank the presenter of the bill and her responses to the member from Lowell. $50 million is a tremendous amount of money. Housing is a tremendous problem in Vermont. We have a number of bills already circulating in this body that are attempting to comprehensively address the issue of housing. I've signed on to some of those bills. And VHCB has a lot of money available to them right now. And I just think that for the sake of process, we just need to tap the brakes right here and use the next 90 days, 100 days, whatever it is we're here, in our normal budget cycle to have a very thoughtful discussion about how much money we're going to deploy towards housing. Probably in the end, it's probably more than 50 million, but how we're going to do it and how we're going to do it in a way that we are going to get the most bang for our buck. We owe that to the people that voted us into office to come here. And I don't think going back to them and saying, we just need to tap the brakes, we need another 3 months to make sure we do this thing right, is an unreasonable ask. And so tomorrow, in tomorrow's calendar, before third reading, I will have an amendment to strike subsection 30, or section 45, sub 37 from the budget adjustment, and to try to work towards coming up with that thoughtful approach as we move towards the budget process this session. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Member from Waterbury.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There's a lot of reasons to support the $50 million in the Budget Adjustment Act for VHCB. almost as much as the money is. There's almost 50 million reasons to support it. Just want to give the body a quick overview of what that money would go for, how VHCB gives out money, and why it's important to include this money in the budget adjustment at this time. It was said during the presentation of the bill that the main reason was to keep the spigot open, as it were. VHCB has meetings with their board when they have money to give away. And there are projects that come from all of our communities, and they come to the desks of the VHCB board, and they hear them, and then they allocate the money when they have them. They've allocated close to $200 million of both general funds and federal funds over the last several years, which would tangentially point out that there is a program in place, and there is a thoughtful process in place, and it's been going on, and it's been providing housing. But as we've said, it's slow. Building housing is slow. Buying hotels and turning them into micro units is faster, but nevertheless it's slow. And then even getting shelter space is slow. We've housed or rehoused close to 3,000 Vermonters since March of 2020. And yet there's still 2,300 or 2,400 Vermonters who are in motel rooms or considered homeless. So when VHCB receives this money, and the money that they received in the fiscal 24 budget, fiscal 23 budget, what they have left basically is $37 million for over $50 million of pipeline projects that are in play right now, which is not enough. And they have, over the course of time, close to 900 units that can go online if only there was enough money to disseminate among the groups, which are our community groups, our community housing groups, primarily, and also our private developers who qualify to build this kind of housing. It's been said that we need to build 40,000 units between now and 2030 in order to have affordable housing again. That's a beastly large number. Housing is not inexpensive to build. And when we're talking about the units and we're talking about the process in the so-called pipeline, it's important to send the message, the same message we've been sending since 2020, that we have funds available and that we've made the commitment to house Vermonters affordably. So by supporting this $50 million, and I'm sorry if I'll have to give this speech again tomorrow during the amendment, but by supporting the $50 million, we are telling Vermont housers, public and private, that we're committed to housing Vermonters affordably as soon as possible. By keeping this money in the budget now, we will be telling VHCB that they can have more board meetings and they can hear from more of our communities about the projects that they have ready to go. So I'm voting to support the $50 million. I'll support the bill today, and I'll vote, and I won't support the amendment tomorrow. And I would ask that you join me. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Member from Northfield.
Madam Speaker, I think the $50 million that's being discussed right now is probably the largest and most obvious, but there are many other pieces in this budget adjustment proposal that are one-time funding issues that are not something that is going to be spent or needed to be spent immediately. They may be indicating a commitment in a place, but when we think about the purpose of the Budget Adjustment Act, it is to tune up the existing budget based on what we last foresaw, and sometimes to meet an urgent, immediate need that can't wait. There's a rush in the process to get the budget adjustment out because it's midway through the year and that money needs to come. But when we do things through the budget adjustment, we take them out of the normal process of full review and balancing among all of our different needs. I think we all know that there's not necessarily immediate capacity in our construction systems and workforce to be turning around and building more immediately. There is not a need to be including that now, and there are a number of other items. I would point, in addition to the 9 million for youth psychiatric beds, where there isn't even a feasibility study back yet. I appreciate that the Appropriations Committee did include language saying we're not going to actually release it until we see that. But it raises yet another point where something that's not at all ready for prime time is getting a sign off for the money when we aren't even ready to make use of it yet. To me, the critical piece is how that takes it out of our ability to look at our needs holistically in a thoughtful process where we're looking at all the different needs, not just responding to one single or on-the-spot part of the budget, and it is not needed as part of the budget adjustment. So I would urge the body to not support the budget adjustment. If it does pass, I would look forward to potentially being able to support it after amendments that may be proposed tomorrow.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Member from Clarendon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I interrogate the presenter of the bill, please?
The member from Virgins is interrogated.
Yes, member, I'm looking at section 45H, $9.2 million for organic dairy. And I'm wondering, do we know how many farms or entities that's going to serve?
We heard on the last morning in the halls of our State House earlier that week that it was becoming aware that organic farmers were in a bit of an urgent need, Madam Speaker. Working with your House Agriculture Committee, they had a joint hearing with the House Agriculture Committee and the Senate Agriculture Committee. I could defer to the member of the chair of the committee, but I do believe, if I have this wrong, he'll correct me, that there are about 130 organic farmers right now. Many of them are on the verge of closing. And you might ask, we reserved this money for a plan. There's a lot of places where we were not ready to say no because there isn't a plan. You saw the immediacy of what the Government Operations and Commerce Committee could put together in a less than a week's time to come back with something that was incredibly well done. We have hope and desire that the same will happen for the organic farm community. I might say that what made at least myself and maybe some of the other members in our committee comfortable, Madam Speaker, with this was asking the question, if this is supported to provide this stabilization to the farm community, was there something in the works that was going to make tomorrow a different day for them? Because it would not make good fiscal sense as much as it would be uncomfortable to say no if they did not have some way of getting to a sustainable future. We heard the testimony through the Ag Committee that there are rules being formed right now in Washington on a bill that has passed. If the bill hadn't passed, I might not have been as positive of its outcome, but that bill is passed, and it's in the process of rules being made that the organic community, particularly organic farmers, will see a benefit, they feel. They will know. So on the other end of this support of one-time money for a one-time stabilization, they feel that it's giving them life and an opportunity to get to a place where they can be sustainable. It may not sustain them all, but I do believe it's 130 or more.
Did you hear from non-organic farms at all about this? Because I've heard here and there that they're wondering where they stand with this.
I'm not too sure if the representative of the chair of the Agriculture Committee would like, if I'd like to defer, if he feels like he can add to this conversation at this point.
The member from Vergennes yields to the member from Shaftesbury.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could I just ask you to repeat the question?
I just wonder if you heard or anyone heard from non-organic farms about why maybe they don't qualify for the same type of one-time federal state assistance.
Madam Speaker, I would say that we heard quite a bit of information from various sources on why the situation that organic dairy farms face is more critical than the situation that conventional farms face. We did not hear specifically from conventional dairy farmers on why this money should go to organic dairies or not. And Madam Speaker, if I might just add a little more information to the previous question, the member from Vergennes was asked how many organic dairy farms there are. She was close. A week ago, when we took this topic up, we learned that there were 140 organic dairy farms at the beginning of the week. By the end of the week, there were 139 operating. And as of today, 7 days later, there are 136.
Okay. So do we think this sustainability plan put in place will keep all of those 136 working?
Madam Speaker, it has been suggested to us that with the $9.2 million spread over 139 or now 136 organic dairy farms, they would be able to get through the next 12 months, yes.
Okay, so this is a one-time thing that they won't come back to. Now, one other question I had, though, was why now? Why in the BAA and not in the budget for fiscal year 24?
So, Madam Speaker, I think that part of the answer to that question lies in the number of farms and as we can see, rapidly shrinking number of farms, and the feeling was that there was some urgency to getting this money into the hands of the farms that were on the brink.
Okay, thank you, member. I would just make the comment that there could be a rapidly shrinking number of electricians, plumbers, and contractors, any type of profession, and to single out one might be problematic. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Member from Williamstown.
I have one comment to make. No farms, no food.
Member from Stannard.
Madam Speaker, we have heard from a number of our members about struggles that their communities have had. We've also heard from some members whose communities have done well by this housing program. Less than desirable, but entirely needed. What the member from Waterbury didn't mention in his numbers that he presented of 2,400 or thereabouts homeless Vermonters that are now in that program, 500 of those people are children. Our Vermont children, who likely were living in the backseat of cars under 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 blankets in this weather before this program was initiated. Children that will go home or will be home tonight and have a warm place to live and a meal put on the table. This is critical. This was not brought up at any time during this debate. We cannot send our children off to school in the morning when they're cold and hungry because we know that they don't learn when that is the case. This is critical. 500 of our Vermont children are housed in these hotels right now. And to consider this amendment to defund this is not okay. I support this appropriation to continue our motel housing until June. Thank you.
Members, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? Member from Fairfield. Member from Fairfield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I interrogate the presenter of the bill?
The member from Vergennes is interrogated.
Madam Speaker, this is easy, hopefully. So in section 45, 34, there's $20.9 million. My question is whether or not, so the governor has asked for $26 million to be set aside for emergency housing in his fiscal 24 budget. Would this 20.9 be on top of that? Should we go that route, or is it to be inclusive? In other words, 50.4 or 54 million, or is it 26 and just happens to be 20 of it now? That's my question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I welcome the opportunity to inform both the members in the body on what it actually is. What we're talking about here is, you're right, the budget adjustment is for FY23. Currently in the FY23 budget, there is not enough funding to get to the end of the year, which would be June 30th, 2023. So what we're talking about here is putting in additional money to keep this program going in order to create the space so that a plan, there's that plan again, a plan can be thought about as to how to move away from the need of this. The 24 budget, you are correct, that there is the regular program, that there is funding in there for the program, but it is for the future, not for FY23.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question, member from Northfield?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I just make a statement on this? The federal program has been winded down since October. Why would we choose to expand it months before it ends when we knew it was going to end? And by doing this, we would just be bringing more people into hotels and motels and jeopardizing whatever their current housing situation is, and for them just to lose eligibility in the next few months. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Member from St. Albans Town.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Can I inquire from the presenter of the bill, please?
The member from Vergennes is interrogated.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have one quick question regarding the organic dairy farmers. Did the Agency of Agriculture testify on this?
Thank you, member. As you maybe heard before, but this was a late-breaking need that came before us. I am not sure if the Agency of Agriculture was a part of the public hearing that occurred. What we did in this bill was wanting to make sure that we preserve the money. We did not have a plan or the next steps. The Agency of Agriculture will be an instrumental part of actually helping to develop what the plan would be in order to distribute this. And when that plan is presented, then I believe we have the language that is there, that this money will then be released. But until that time, there is no money going out the door until we see that plan.
Okay, and then moving back over to emergency housing, we spent some considerable time talking about this. I just have a couple more questions. The auditor's recent report on these emergency housing investments found they weren't moving the needle on reducing actual homelessness. So why divert the money out of permanent solutions toward this program? And wouldn't this money be better directed towards permanent housing solutions?
That is an opinion you would like me to make on whether or not the money should be here or there. Am I getting that correct, member?
Sure.
Well, I would say, and I can't speak for everyone, that we need to do all of the above. We need to keep people in place, housing, shelter, what needs to happen because, and at the same time, make the necessary investments that we have done in the past and that we hope to continue to work with the administration on the support that we have around housing, building it out, long-term perpetual housing, perpetually affordable housing, as well as the fabulous results that have occurred within the VHIP program, which is bringing on existing apartments faster. Now, they're not perpetually affordable, but they do help. So we need to invest in all of the above. And I might add, too, there's one thing else that's in there that might get lost, is that the investment in, and we've heard it, into the supports that have to go. It is not enough to support people just with a room. You have got to create the support systems around them, the wraparound services, by having coordinators. So you will see in our, or that we continue to support in this budget adjustment, $2 million for the coordinated cares teams to be there to meet people at these places, to help them be able to move from whether it's homelessness, a shelter, in a hotel, or in a car, into the housing that is being created, could be created, and is out there.
Thank you, member. My concern with this BAA is the amount of additional spending and policy that we're putting in here without the understanding of how this will impact the fiscal year 24 budget. And I hope this isn't at the expense of the set aside for federal match that the governor has recommended. I think we have a chance to do this the right way. These are decisions that should be made in the next fiscal year budget. I will be voting no on this bill, and I urge the body to do the same. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question, member from Putney?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank your Appropriations Committee for their due diligence in putting together a budget that's compassionate and best utilizes the resource we have in front of us. Just a quick piece about the organic dairy farmers. Last week, the Windham County delegation had a Zoom call with several organic dairy farmers and at least one standard dairy farmer. They all agreed this was money well spent. They explained the basic math to us that right now it's costing them $41 to produce 100 pounds of milk, and their price is $32 per hundredweight. That math just does not add up. They need our help. I think this is going to be money well spent. And I would just like to close with saying, I'm reading the weather report for this weekend right now. For anyone that's thinking we shouldn't be doing housing right now for people. Dangerous cold and wind chills, 30 to 45 below, except 40 to 55 below in portions of northeastern Vermont. I think that says all we need to say about how we need to protect and serve our fellow Vermonters.
Member from Derby.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I interrogate the presenter of the bill, please?
The member from Vergennes is interrogated.
Thank you. Do we know if New York and Massachusetts and New Hampshire have continued their programs for the homeless, or have they canceled them?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am not aware, as much as I try to keep up on the news, Madam Speaker, I'm not aware of their current policies.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand. Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member. I am not aware of the current policies in the other states.
Thank you. My thoughts are, if the surrounding states have canceled their programs, how many homeless people will be moving to Vermont? Thank you. That's all I have.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? Member from Poultney.
Madam Speaker, while I applaud the House Committee on Appropriations for once again doing the heavy lift to prepare and submit the FY23 budget adjustment, there are a few items in this budget adjustment of concern. With regards to the emergency housing piece, the $20.9 million proposal continues the expanded eligibility comprehensively for what is currently a federally funded program, and now it will be funded with state dollars. The current federally funded program has cost close to $400 million over the last 2.5 to 3 years. This federal program has been winding down since October. Why would we choose to expand the program in the months before it ends? My understanding is our neighbor states of New Hampshire and Massachusetts are not and have or will end their program by March 31st. We fund the most vulnerable people in this program, or even all those households currently in the program. DCF has advised me that the current transitional housing and emergency housing programs are serving 845 households. That price tag to support all those households for the additional 91 days or until the end of June would cost approximately $11.2 million. This might be a more reasonable approach rather than reintroducing expanded eligibility and creating another cliff in June. I am uncomfortable with passing a bill which includes funding without committees of jurisdiction having a robust conversation about expanding a program set to expire next month. I'm uncomfortable with using state dollars for a federally funded program due to expire March 31st without a larger policy conversation. This proposal expends more than 3 months of hotel motel housing than the governor recommended budget for permanent housing solutions in proven programs such as VHIP, $20 million, or Missing Middle, $20 million. And I might respond to the member from Putney that the safety net for emergency weather-related issues will always be there. Relative to organic dairy, if the need is immediate, the language in this bill does not provide immediate relief. It says the agency shall develop the plan in collaboration with appropriate representatives of the impacted industry. The plan shall be submitted no later than March 15th, 2023, and shall be reviewed by the committees of jurisdiction and approved by the General Assembly prior to implementation. My concern is that we, once again, abdicate our legislative authority to a group of citizens who are charged to come up with a plan rather than the robust conversations taking place in our committees under the Golden Dome. In other words, it is our job. With the plan submitted March 15th, it is likely the funding plan will not be approved by both chambers much before April. It seems to me the appropriate venue for this conversation would be in the big bill budget development and not the BAA. Relative to the VHCB, Vermont Housing Conservation Board, while VHCB sometimes funds small projects, it is my understanding VHCB primarily invests in projects that are 20 units or more, as they leverage the federal low-income tax credit program and prioritize perpetual affordability. If we continue to appropriate money to VHCB without bumpers, then we run the risk of marginalizing our rural communities who cannot stand up utilities to meet the demand of a 20-plus housing unit building. We need to begin focusing on regional equity when it comes to funding housing. If we are going to continue to invest more money in VHCB, instead of investing equitably in programs such as VHIP or the missing middle, then we surely will create a further divide between urban and rural communities. If I read the numbers correctly, VHCB has a balance of over $100 million. If we fund an additional $50 million, then this would bring VHCB's total funding over the past 3 fiscal years to $341 million, with a current balance of over $100 million. I am very open to providing more funding for housing, but we must look at the overall housing need we are facing. Let's have a conversation in the committees of jurisdiction and find out what the right funding, the right timing, and the right entity may be for our overall housing needs. Due to the above concerns, I will be voting no on this bill, and I urge the body to do so as well.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Member from Northfield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's already been acknowledged by my seatmate, Representative Donahue, that we have a massive problem in Berlin at the Hilltop. It has been a huge problem with public safety and also the safety of our residents, with no compensation to taxpayers for the price of this public safety. Also, people refuse to go to the hospital that is right across the street for their immediate needs in a lot of cases. All this must be taken under consideration also. The other thing is that was brought up is the bad weather that's happening this weekend. I just want to say thank God that this program doesn't end this weekend. Thank you.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Member from Newfane.
Madam Speaker, I rise in support of this bill and the thoughtful work of your Committee on Appropriations. This bill contains significant one-time investments to meet the urgent needs of Vermonters across our state. With unprecedented amounts of funding at our disposal, these decisions allow us to put our values into action and meaningfully impact our communities in the areas of housing, human services, rural infrastructure, and agriculture, to highlight just a few. With more work ahead of us, this bill is an important step toward delivering our promises to Vermonters. I urge the body to support this bill.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, will the clerk please commence to call the roll?
Andrews of Westford.
Yes. 3 minutes. Will the House please come to order and members kindly take their seats? I would like to remind members that we are in the middle of a roll call vote. You do not need to use your microphones for your vote. Members and guests are prohibited from using computers, phones, or any type of electronic device. Please refrain from the passing of notes and conversation during a roll call. When the clerk calls your name, please respond in a loud and clear voice so the clerk can accurately record your vote. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Will the clerk please continue to call the roll?
Anthony of Berry City. Yes. Arison of Weathersfield. Arsenault of Williston. Yes. Austin of Colchester. Yes. Bartholomew of Heartland. Yes. Bartley of Fairfax. No. Beck of St. Johnsbury. No. Berbecco of Winooski. Yes. Byrong of Virgins. Yes. Black of Essex. Yes. Bloomley of Burlington. Yes. Bongarts of Manchester. Yes. Boslin of Westminster. Yes. Boyden of Cambridge. Yes. Brady of Williston. Yes. Brannigan of Georgia. No. Brennan of Colchester. No. Brown of Richmond. Yes. Brownell of Pownell. Yes. Brumstead of Shelburne. Yes. Burdett of West Rutland. No. Burke of Brattleboro.
Yes.
Burrows of West Windsor.
Yes.
Buss of Woodstock.
Yes.
Campbell of St. Johnsbury.
Yes.
Canfield of Fairhaven.
No.
Carroll of Bennington.
Yes.
Casey of Montpelier.
Yes.
Chapin of East Montpelier. Chase of Chester.
Yes.
Chase of Colchester.
Yes.
Chestnut Tangerman of Middletown Springs.
Yes.
Christie of Hartford.
Yes.
Chena of Burlington.
Yes.
Clifford of Rutland City. Coffey of Guilford.
Yes.
Cole of Hartford.
Yes.
Conlin of Cornwall.
Yes.
Corcoran of Bennington.
Yes.
Cordes of Lincoln.
Yes.
DeMar of Enosburg.
No.
Demrow of Corinth. Dickinson of St. Albans Town.
No.
Dodge of Essex. Dolan of Essex Junction.
Yes.
Dolan of Waitsfield.
Yes.
Donahue of Northfield.
No.
Durfee of Shaftesbury.
Yes.
Elder of Starksboro.
Yes.
Emmons of Springfield.
Yes.
Farley's Rubio Barnett. Galfetti of Berrytown. Garofano of Essex.
Yes.
Goldman of Rockingham.
Yes.
Ghostland of Northfield.
No.
Graham of Williamstown.
Yes.
Granning of Jericho.
Yes.
Gregoire of Fairfield.
No.
Hango of Berkshire.
No.
Harrison of Chittenden.
No.
Hedrick of Burlington.
Yes.
Higley of Lowell.
No.
Holcomb of Norwich.
Yes.
Hooper of Randolph.
Yes.
Hooper of Burlington.
Yes.
Houghton of Essex Junction. Howard of Rutland City.
Yes.
Hyman of South Burlington.
Yes.
James of Manchester.
Yes.
Jerome of Brandon.
Yes.
Kornheiser of Brattleboro.
Yes.
Krasnow of South Burlington.
Yes.
Labor of Morgan.
No.
LaBounty of Linden.
Yes.
Lally of Shelburne.
Yes.
Lalone of South Burlington.
Yes.
Lamont of Morristown.
Yes.
Lanford of Virgins.
Yes.
LaRush of Franklin.
No.
Levitt of Grand Isle.
Yes.
Lipsky of Stowe.
Yes.
Logan of Burlington.
Yes.
Long of Newfane.
Yes.
McGuire of Rutlands. Marcotte of Coventry. Maslin of Thetford. Matos of Milton. McCann of Montpelier.
Yes.
McCarthy of St. Albans City.
Yes.
McCoy of Pulteney.
Yes, and I'd like to explain my vote.
McFawn of Berrytown. McGill of Bridport. Mahaly of Calais. Minier of South Burlington. Morgan of Milton. Morris of Springfield. Morrissey of Bennington. Rowicki of Putney. Mulvaney Stanek of Burlington. Nicole of Ludlow. Knott of Rutland City. Noyes of Wolcott. Nugent of South Burlington. O'Brien of Tunbridge. Odie of Burlington. Oliver of Sheldon. Page of Newport City. Payala of Londonderry. Parsons of Newberry. Pat of Worcester. Pearl of Danville. Peterson of Clarendon. Pouch of Heinsberg. Priestley of Bradford. Rachelson of Burlington. Rice of Dorset. Roberts of Halifax. Samus of Castleton. Sackowitz of Randolph. Shy of Middlebury. Shaw of Pittsford. Sheldon of Middlebury. Sibilia of Dover. Sims of Craftsbury. Small of Winooski. Smith of Derby. Squirrel of Underhill. Stebbins of Burlington. Stevens of Waterbury. Stone of Burlington. Supernaut of Barnard. Taylor of Milton. Taylor of Colchester. Templeman of Brownington. Tolino of Brattleboro. Toof of St. Albans Town. Torrey of Moortown. Troiano of Stannard. Walker of Swanton. Waters Evans of Charlotte. White of Bethel. Whitman of Bennington. Williams of Berry City. Williams of Granby. Wilson of Linden. Wood of Waterbury. Dodge of Essex. Farlese Rubio of Barnet. Maslin of Thetford. Matos of Milton. O'Brien of Tunbridge. Pouch of Heinsberg. Walker of Swanton. Wilson of Linden.
For purpose of explanation, member from Pulteney.
Madam Speaker, may I change my vote?
McCoy of Pulteney.
And for purpose of explanation, member from Pulteney.
Madam Speaker, while I applaud the House Committee on Appropriations for the heavy lift in preparing and presenting the FY23 budget adjustment, there are a few items in this FY23 budget adjustment of concern. Due to a lack of plan going forward for our emergency housing program, the appropriation of $9.2 million to the organic dairy industry without any policy or plan, and the additional $50 million added to the bottom line of VHCB without assurances of regional equity gave me great pause. It is for these reasons that I cannot support the FY23 budget adjustment bill as presented.
Member for Manchester.
Madam Speaker, may I explain my vote?
You may.
Madam Speaker, I'm proud today to vote yes for H145, the Mid-Year Budget Adjustment Act. Budgets are moral documents. They reflect our deepest values and priorities. In this vote today, we have made thoughtful investments in state government, in the agencies, partners, and programs that help people and lift up communities in every single corner of our state. Notably, we support housing that will provide shelter in both the short and long term for our fellow Vermonters who are most vulnerable.
Member from Castleton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. One of the reasons why I
Member,
voted no
would
on this particular bill, and it's not even a matter in terms of the ideas. Some of these ideas are extremely sound, and we want to help people, and we want to make sure that we're helping them the most efficient way possible. We want to make sure that those who are vulnerable are getting the assistance that they need. We want to make sure industries that are impacted.
Member from Winooski, what is your point of order?
Is the member giving a vote explanation, Madam Speaker?
I find your point of order well taken, member from Castleton. You need to ask permission to give the vote explanation.
I need to ask permission for the vote explanation? Okay, I thought I did that, but. May I have permission for vote explanation, please?
You may.
Madam Speaker, thank you. To abridge it, in terms of why I voted the way I did, there's been much discussion from both sides of the aisle regarding the housing issue in the state, especially with our most vulnerable, the homeless, and those who are going through mental health crises, and those who are going through substance abuse disorder. There have been no provisions mentioned by either side that as a process of this housing, we have not discussed the evaluation of folks that are receiving these services and talking about how we can perform better to help those in need to achieve these services. And that's why I have voted no for this.
Members, we are waiting for the clerks to count the votes. Members, please listen to the results of your vote. Those voting yes, 107. Those voting no, 33. You have ordered third reading of the bill. Members, that completes the orders of the day. Are there any announcements? Member from Middlebury.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. While we were working on the budget adjustment, my daughter was having a baby. So this is her second. My son has 2 boys. My daughter has a little boy named Leo. And now we have a beautiful baby girl named June Emery Dargis. And I just couldn't be a happier grandmother. So thank you for
Congratulations. I don't think anyone can beat that. Member from Brattleboro.
In slightly less interesting news, tomorrow's tax workshop is being postponed to next Friday.
Are there any further announcements? Member from West Windsor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Social Equity Caucus is already underway online if you've received an invitation, or in room 30, which is the judicial playroom. Thank you.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, member from Poultney, can you please offer us a motion to adjourn until Friday, February 3rd at 9:30 a.m.?
Madam Speaker, I make a motion this body stand in adjournment until Friday, February 3rd, 2023 at 9:30 a.m.
You have heard the motion. Are you ready for the question? If so, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do